Welcome to Transformational Blueprints, the podcast that's here to tackle the big question. Why do so many transformation programs fall short? And what can we do about it? I'm Mario Michaels, founder and director of Synaxia Group, and I'm thrilled to have you join me. In this series, we go beyond theory, bringing you first-hand stories and insights from some of the world's top architecture and transformation leaders. It's all about sharing real-world lessons, sparking fresh ideas, and giving back to the architecture community. So whether you're looking to learn, be inspired, or stay ahead of the curve, grab your coffee, settle in, and let's dive in together. Hi everyone, today we're going to be speaking with Rosangela Sanches about aligning data science with architecture. Rosangela has worked on different cultures, geographies and environments. She's played different roles within a wide variety of industries, either advising on transformational processes or redesign, or preparing companies to enable strategy implementation on a long-term basis. With a strong knowledge on technology, business, architecture and data, as well as academic background in business and technology, she has implemented global and regional projects on large, complex, matrix and diversified companies, mostly linking business capabilities, processes and technology. So welcome, Rosangela.
Thank you. And thank you for having me here, Mario.
All the way from Brazil, 2 hours from Sao Paulo as well. So I believe you're our furthest guest away from the UK. So thank you very much for joining us. It's early morning where you are now. So if you wouldn't mind, just tell us a little, other than what I've just said, just give us a bit of context. How did you get to where you are now?
Well, I have gone through different roles and industries, as you perfectly introduced me here in a very classic way, Mario. I have got the early years of my career initially pursuing to be a tech expert in several areas. So very classic way to start a career. And later, through different roles and positions, I start to bring more business process design knowledge to my roles, and also business strategic planning. One thing that I just later realized is that independently on the industry or the role or the position, whatever I was, I have always, since the very first moment, started working as a translator between tech space and the business models or creating new business models. I was very lucky to be involved in this kind of initiative since the early years of my career. So I become a mixed person between business and tech. I have never seen this space as the way that people usually describe. So there are tech world and there are business world. For me, it was always kind of just one universe.
One world. Yeah.
The same way. So
Okay. Now, we've got a question from our previous guest, Chris Quinn from the Co-op. What is the number one skill an architect needs?
That is a very good question. And it's truly hard to elect just one. But I would say maybe the proactive 360 relationship building along both vertical and horizontal lines within the organization that person work for, and not only within the organization, but also in the market, in different files. Because this is truly the kind of skill that will be able the person to lead and sometimes influence both tech teams and at the same time taking care of business stakeholders in all levels. So navigate pretty well both horizontally and vertically.
Okay, perfect. And again, for our listeners, just so there's a bit of context going into this conversation, would you mind just giving us an overview of what your remit was in your most recent role at Cargill as the Enterprise Architecture Director for Latin America?
Well, I was enterprise/business architect, let's say. Something that we can further explore as well, because it's a very interesting topic. We have not yet crossed the chasm between in business architecture, I would say, between early adoption and early majority, but we'll get there eventually. But anyway, so I have been this kind of role with a very large scope in terms of
Yeah.
countries, but also in terms of disciplines. So helping different business lines to get the further steps into a more matured model or new business models.
Okay. And you played a set of diverse roles throughout your career, whether that was the chief architect as Monsanto, and we'll go into how that came about, going through an acquisition with Bayer as well, getting scouted to become an enterprise architect. Again, let's talk about that in a minute. But how did you decide on becoming an architect?
Well, Mario, being completely honest, I would say, like in many other architects, it was not exactly a decision in the sense that it was not perfectly planned. So I have
Yep.
not established this as a goal. I want to
Mhm.
be an architect at this point of the career. I got scouted several times in different occasions, like you said. And this made me start to realize it would make a lot of sense for me
Mhm.
personally, professionally, and also for the future of the
Mhm.
companies and the organizations. And this, the way that I jump into this also reinforced on me, which was already my natural preference for
Mhm.
focusing on skills when I was looking or for my team or when I hired someone. I did already have this inclination to hire by skills and
Yep.
other by other aspects. And my story, so the way that it unfolded for me only reinforced for this. Like I said, specifically on enterprise architect and business architect, we have not yet crossed the chasm
Mhm.
between early adoption and early majority. So I feel that there is still a vast and large potential of such role to be embedded into business strategy creation.
Mhm.
And I think as much as we mature toward this and the companies mature toward this will become more common to be a career choice.
Yeah.
People will start to look to this as a, wow, I want to be an architect
Yeah.
as a career by choice and not because there was an opportunity and you were attracted for that. So my guessing. Another thing it is maybe we should do some affirmations here. I truly believe that the future of enterprise and slash business architect role, it is something that's here to stay. This
Yeah.
is just something to be said. It's not something like a occasional thing. We have just seen this in the last decade at least, just grow in
Yeah.
different things. So maybe it could be a good exercise if we start to think and exercise in our minds what is very likely to unfold over the next years.
Yeah.
When we talk about next years, personally, I don't like too much to position the things like short term, medium term, and long term. For
No.
one reason, we'll be wrong. We cannot estimate exactly in how many years this will happen. But instead, I would say there are things that is more most likely to happen, things that are reasonably likely to happen, and there are things on this space of architecture that are still, I would say, aspirational or
Yep.
something like that. So we can understand this in terms of terms, right?
Yep.
Most likely it's probably in a short one, aspirational, probably a long one. But what I see that most likely more companies each day will be establishing this role and positioning it within business line. And
Yep.
this is the first change to come. Because it has been traditionally positioned within IT.
I see. Yeah.
What is reasonably like to happen, so maybe it will take more time, is a major shift from having architects design the future state and roadmaps to really architecting business capabilities. And this becomes a roadmap.
Yep.
And in this case, technology's choice are just part of the discussion.
Yep.
It's not really the major deliverable, let's say.
Yeah.
As an aspiration, I think everyone who works as an architect would like to see this kind of role as a profession with a more clear career path.
Yeah.
And not just as a role, which can lead to a lot of things in the market. It can lead to certifications, to specific academic programs, to an entire ecosystem with vendors providing tools. So you name it. But I think there is still a kind of aspirational thing. We take more time for this. By the way, maybe it's my bias because I have been working on data science space for decades.
Yeah.
And AI as well. But I see a very similar path for data science. And I think data science has gone through this and is much more advanced than architecture, but has gone through the very same steps of that I have just described it.
And you're right, for it to become a profession that people aspire from a low level and look up and think, right, that's where I want to get to. First thing, you need the career path. Second thing, you need the role models. And you're an example of that role model. But what do you think you demonstrated, whether that's skill-wise or whatever it was, for somebody to go, and we don't know who that somebody is or what their role was, to go, right, here's Rosangela, she's working in our data team, for example, data analytics team. We think she'd make a fantastic business / and I say / enterprise architecture because that's where you ended up, by the way. Not what you know, and this will be good advice for leaders looking to build out their architecture teams as we speak and listening to this. It's good advice for younger architects who are earlier on in their career, not younger by age, but earlier on in their career, who are looking to make a career out of it. So what, you know, we've spoken about the skill of being able to network upwards and build those and vertically and horizontally build those 360 relationships. But what were you demonstrating at the time? What were you delivering on where for somebody to I suppose scout you, as you put it?
Well, besides the things that we have already mentioned, I think I would say that the set of background, knowing different disciplines. I think everyone who can go through a different and a very large set of disciplines, because when you, and I'll give an example, when you sit down with business to talk about capabilities, one capability is not one relationship to technology. So it's not because they are talking about, I don't know, standardize a specific process. We are not necessarily talking about an ERP implementation, or at least not only this. So it's very hard to say, or with very few exceptions, one capability that you want to enable, it will translate to one technology, one platform, or one solution. It's usually a set of things that enables that experience or that functionality or that capability. So back to the skills or how we look to architects, how I was looking for that. I think that as much as large the experience of the person across different disciplines, if this person understands well infrastructure, understand well data, understand well ERP, understand all the disciplines of technology, and also has a very good idea on that specific industry from business perspective. Those are the things that usually cause the attention. I think I was scouted because of this, and I have attracted a lot of people as a result. In that same sense.
Okay. That makes absolute sense. Okay, so you touched on data science and the alignment it could have with architecture. Why do you believe data science aligns closely with architecture?
Well, first, as I said before, I think data science as a practice or as a profession, which includes then an AI practice there, has gone already in the last decade or so through the very same phases
Yeah.
that architecture has not gone yet. And it is still happening somehow. The other thing is that companies clearly demonstrate different levels of maturity when applying those two disciplines, both
Yep.
architecture and data science AI, right? And even within a company, it could be very different levels of maturity. In one area,
Yeah.
they are more advanced, in another area, they're just learning about. What we also need to consider in that topic is that the evolution of new business model, independing on technology, but the evolution of new business models, and we can say the new technologies as its enablers, are not slowing at all.
No.
This is a fact. We can easily recognize that. So we will always need professionals who can think, and I would say think slash shape slash define slash architect more broadly each solution and in a more holistic way. And
Right.
having this kind of not only ability, but being able to practice this in a very pragmatic way on the projects, on design solutions, for me, it's a very common characteristic between architecture and data science and AI space. Each day we need more thinkers and enablers of the business models that we want to implement. Again, back to
Yeah.
business models first. Another perspective we can take from this is that if we were talking specifically about data science, we should be more mature on this, but we are not there yet.
We've certainly been around longer in terms of if you look at architecture, and we've got architects that have been doing it 40, 50 years in some cases, believe it or not. So it's been around longer, but there's an argument to suggest, it's not as mature as data science is, even though that's been around a lot less time. And they say quite similar challenges. You're right. In data science is a really powerful practice, but often is filled with highly academic people or highly technical people. And what it needs is somebody to say, right, that's really good, useful information. How do we now use it as a business, not just technology, but as a business to move that needle forward throughout our transformation journey or throughout this implementation or throughout this project that we're working on or whatever it may be? It's always going to need that business head. That's not to say data scientists can't be that person, or a data and analytics leader cannot be that person, but often they don't have the view of the whole business, and often it's within technology or within certain areas of the business. So it sounds like they have very, very similar challenges, and it sounds like it is. You're right. Nobody's actually highlighted this before, but it sounds like it's quite critical to an organization's success having that. Everybody says data's the new oil and so on. And businesses that are going on AI programs, strategic programs of implementing AI throughout the business, but not necessarily having the right data to be able to pull that. So that's step one, and so on and so forth. Yeah. So thank you very much for that.
Yeah. Additionally, there's one more point that I have just remembered here, is that maybe it is good to emphasize this, which is linked to how much specific architecture domains like infrastructure, like data architecture, and many others can really enable a more solid, and I would dare to say more fancy, usage of AI and data science. Because this makes the entire ecosystem for data scientists much more productive. They can really focus on enabling the desired business capabilities with data science and AI instead of having to take care of a lot of other things. So that is another thing. I see architecture as an enable AI and data science specifically.
100%. 100%. So you've played both regional and global roles as an architect. How does an international role, and for those people listening, doing an international role at the moment, whether that's leadership or not, in a global geography, differ from a standard architecture position that is maybe not international?
That is a very interesting question. since I am the first outside the UK, right? In the
Yeah.
series.
Yeah.
So I would say that the first thing to notice, Mario, is how much a global strategy, whatever it is, but how much a global strategy can be implemented in different ways, in different speeds, in different
Yeah.
approach, while it's still subordinated to a common goal. This is something, it sounds obvious, I know, but it's something really easy to forget along with the path of
Yeah.
implementing things. Huh? Either we go straight to let's take this and go wide and implement exactly like this in a stricter way, or we allow so many differences that you cannot manage the ecosystem anymore. So only this fact can add a lot of complexity when building a roadmap to transition to a desired state. But also come back to the required skills to be an architect. We are talking about architects in this specific case who should be the voice for their geographies, and in some cases the advocates strongly provide inputs from business needs to the global strategy, but at the same time, they need to be the translators of a global strategy and design to the specifics of geography. So you're not talking about two different persons, two individuals trying to accommodate their goals and trying to align the things and negotiating. We are talking as an architect about only one person trying to do those two things. And
Yeah.
that's why it's so effective, because this person can provide inputs to a global strategy and at the same time to be advocating for what a specific geography needs based on that specific market or business needs.
Okay.
So this is obviously, it can be far more complex than acting within a specific domain, which is already complex sometimes. But I would say that is also one of the most interesting ways to be an architect, at least on my personal opinion. And this requires, on top of all other skills, the ability to shape, to customize, and to communicate the storytelling behind each step of the way. And I think when you are in position, then you are building this and dealing with all levels and personalizing the storytelling. Wow. You have no similar days. Each day in your life is a different day, which
Yeah.
for me is very motivated thing. So
Because you're right. Global businesses will have a global vision, a global mission, etc., etc. But each regional office or regional area will have market intricacies that, at global level, number one, they don't know. Number two, they probably don't need to know that level of detail. So having an architect who's ground level, speaking to sales, speaking to marketing, challenges, etc., right? How can we help? Whether that's using technology, whether that's, reorganization of the people, the process, whatever it may be. How can we help deliver that, which then aligns to the global mission or the global vision or the global strategic objectives or business objectives? So, we're still aligned, but we're doing it in our slightly different way because of our market. And that could be anything to do with like the culture of the market, the customers, it could be how you approach it, could be, legal, federation, legal, compliant, whatever it may be. So yeah, absolutely. There's a skill we've not really spoken about, which is really important then if you're going to be that regional voice, and that's storytelling. So why is that crucial? And why is the skill crucial if you're going to take a business from as is to be, which is a business analysis sort of terminology I appreciate, but and then the second part to that question is, how do you then approach that in a global context?
the most obvious goal for building storytelling is to communicate something, either for engaging someone or to make them aware or to get support or to validate some ideas. But when you are truly working globally speaking in different cultures, in different spaces, you are also working different cultures. So
Mm-hmm.
the storytelling has a lot of to do with customized for that specific culture.
Yep.
To a point where, and again, when we are talking about culture, Mario, 99% of the times there is no right or wrong. There are just different things. It's different because
Yep.
the culture
Yeah.
is different. But the storytelling usually is more linked to the culture than actually to the language or the
Yep.
things. One example, some specific cultures are much more detail oriented.
Mm-hmm.
Others prefer go from very high level and only go to details when needed.
Yep.
This completely changed the storytelling. This completely changed the way that you present programs. This also changes completely the way that you ask questions. And
Mm-hmm.
for me, the major task or the thing that you do more as an architect is asking questions. You ask
Mm-hmm.
a questions for everyone, above your peers, under you, and lateral. So asking questions is your daily
Yep.
basis. You do
Yep.
this all day in different levels. And but for those questions be successful, I think culture should be one. So it's not surprise that a lot of organizations have been structured themselves in at least in the last 10 years or so
Yep.
with having architects from different origins, right?
Yep.
And this is not only a language thing because you can operate in local language. It's mainly because of the culture. You can operate in different ones, which
Absolutely.
brings us another skill related to the second part of your question. If we come back to skills, being able to operate in different cultures and be open to understand what
Yeah.
is a different culture from yours, it is an essential skill for an enterprise architect, whatever
And
they
a,
are.
and a lot of people might not have experienced that because they don't necessarily work for global organizations whereby there's a distinct difference between each area from a culture perspective. And I'm not saying there's not between, working with, as I said earlier, sales, marketing, operations. Those individual business units will have their own culture, but traditionally, based on where you live, where you're from, your upbringing, and so on, your culture tends to, your personality traits tend to be the same. If you've grown up in a completely different country, for example, your beliefs and values and affirmations are going to be completely different. So culture is going to be different. Is there anything just on that? Obviously, you're clearly good at storytelling, and we've not sort of prepared for this, by the way. But is there any sort of resources that you could point people to if they want to develop that skill of storytelling? That's a book, whether that's, I don't know, YouTube video or.
Well, I would not say specifically a research, but I would say something that we need to practice
Mhm.
extensively, which is build your storytelling and then try to test this storytelling in small
Mhm.
audiences in a very diverse audience. Uh, After you doing this,
Mhm.
you have like 20 different versions along this path. So before I scale and I start to really publishing this and scaling the communication of this, I would say extensively get still in a small audience, but present this to diverse audience and
Mhm.
usually individual way. You
Yeah.
will get very valuable feedback,
Yeah.
especially on the sense of culture, because
Yeah.
something the information is there.
Yeah.
Everybody will understand the information, but the interpretation of your storytelling could be different. So you present to different cultures. You say, wow, they
Yeah.
felt it's too much detail. Wow,
Yeah.
they felt
Yeah.
it's too much in the surface. And this is given by the way that all of us we interpret the things. So I think that would be my tip. I'm not a
Okay.
research, but do
Practice,
this.
practice, practice with different
Invest
people.
time on doing this. Yeah.
Okay. We're going to move on to our quick fire questions now. What do you expect in 2025 will be a game changer from a technology perspective?
I will not give you the obvious answer, which is AI. I will not do that. So I would say two things for being a game changer, Mario. I would say simplicity on design.
Yep.
Each day we have been complicated too much. The word is complicated. So I think as much as we can have technology that enable us to do a simpler design or embedded simplicity on design of the things that we use, that is really a game changer. A very complicated solution will not be used. The other thing in today's world is security features.
Yep.
And technologies that enable security features and keep updated on that, for me, is also a game changer. And combine it with embedded those security features by design.
Okay, perfect. What advice would you give to a newly appointed chief architect?
You one strongly resist to the temptation of mapping all the details of the as-is landscape.
Yeah.
This is almost natural that you try to do this, right? I'm not saying not to do this, but resist to the temptation to jump into this because it will consume you for a couple of years. But instead, focus on understanding first, or prioritize to understand first, the near future state of business plan.
Yep.
And go from there to start to identify the most needed capacity.
Any advice you wish you'd received earlier on in your career?
My own career?
Yeah.
I think I would love to have mentor about choosing the next job based on my skills, not on the position and role.
They need it.
It took me a while to understand that.
Yeah.
And it becomes so easy when I adopted.
You can easily fall into that trap, especially if somebody really wants you, you feel wanted and you like that attention, right? Yes, I'll do, yes, I'll go and do enterprise architecture. From a talent perspective within architecture, what's the biggest change you expect to see in the market over the next 5 years?
Well, overall, I see more professionals bring to the table a set of multidisciplines backgrounds. I think this is a trend. And architecture specifically can leverage a lot of this, because this will obviously impact on hiring process and talent manager. We talk a lot about hiring process. We talk very little about how to manage the talents that we brought, right? Specifically on architecture space, I would say over the next year, business architecture as an increased practice. I clearly see that.
Okay. Now a question for our next guest. What question would you like to ask our next guest?
What has made our next question happy being an architect?
Okay. Brilliant. Fantastic. Okay. Well, look, sadly, Rosangela, we've run out of time. Thank you so much for giving us your time and for an excellent episode and giving us that broader view of global organizations and how, speaking a lot more in detail around how to align data science and the reasons why within architecture. So, once again, thank you so much for an excellent podcast episode and for giving us your time today.
Thank you for having me here.
And that's a wrap on another episode of Transformational Blueprints. Thank you so much for tuning in. I hope you found plenty of insights and takeaways to fuel your journey. If you enjoyed the episode, I'd be incredibly grateful if you could share it, leave a review, or give us a like. It helps us reach more people in the industry who can benefit from these conversations. Don't forget to follow Synaxia Group on LinkedIn to stay updated on new episodes. The links are in the show notes. Join us next time for more tips, strategies, and stories from some of the brightest minds in technology and transformation. Until then, take care and keep transforming.